away from those kids, right now!
The woman screamed into her phone. "There's a suspicious man here. He refuses to leave." A siren wailed somewhere closer. The man slowly raised his hands and said, "Ma'am, I'm their coach." Now imagine this. Imagine standing in the middle of a cracked outdoor basketball court, surrounded by children who trust you, children whose parents handed them over believing they'd be safe. Imagine knowing you've done nothing wrong and still feeling your heart race because someone decided your black skin looked like a threat. This is where the story begins. The man's name was Marcus Reed. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and calm in the way only someone used to responsibility could be. Every Saturday morning, he unlocked the rusted chain on the neighborhood court before sunrise. He swept broken glass from the sidelines, checked the rims with his hands, and laid out cones he bought with his own money. By the time the kids arrived, laughing, arguing, bouncing balls too hard, Marcus was already in coach mode. To the kids, he wasn't just Coach Reed. He was the man who taught them how to pivot instead of panic, how to pass instead of forcing a shot, how to breathe when the world felt stacked against them. He taught discipline, not just drills, respect, not just rebounds. That morning felt no different. Parents leaned against fences, scrolling through phones. A few waved at Marcus before leaving for work. The kids ran layup lines, their sneakers squeaking against the concrete. Then she arrived. Her name was Linda Hawthorne, though most people in the neighborhood knew her as that woman from the HOA. She lived in the townhouses bordering the court, a row of identical homes with white trim and perfectly trimmed hedges. She had complained about the court before, about noise, about litter, about unauthorized gatherings. She stopped near the fence, arms crossed tightly over her chest, lips pressed into a thin line. She watched Marcus like he was an intruder who'd overstayed his welcome. At first, Marcus ignored her. He'd learned that attention often fed this kind of tension. He blew his whistle and called out encouragement instead. But Linda didn't leave. She stepped closer. Her eyes flicked to the kids, then back to Marcus, lingering too long.
"Excuse me," she called out sharply. Marcus turned, still holding the whistle. "Yes, ma'am? Who gave you permission to be here?" Marcus smiled politely. "This is a public court. I run a free youth program." Linda scoffed. "That's not what I asked. Do you live here?" "I grew up 3 blocks away," Marcus said evenly, "and I coach these kids every weekend." She pulled her phone from her purse like it was already rehearsed. "I don't feel safe," she said loudly, glancing at a nearby parent who had stopped walking. Marcus felt it then, the shift in the air. The kids noticed too. Dribbling slowed. Conversations quieted. "Ma'am," Marcus said, keeping his voice calm, "these kids are practicing basketball, that's all." Linda had already started dialing. "There's a man here who won't leave. He's gathering children. I think something's wrong." Marcus froze, not in fear, but in disbelief. Parents began to return, drawn by the tension. One mother stepped forward. "He's their coach," she said. "My son's been coming here for months." Linda waved her off. "I'm talking to the police," she snapped. "I pay HOA fees to keep this place safe." The word safe hung heavy in the air. When the first patrol car arrived, the kids huddled together instinctively. Marcus raised his hand slowly, not because he was told to, but because he'd learned long ago that compliance could mean survival. The officer stepped out, hand rested near his belt. "Sir, what's going on here?" Before Marcus could speak, Linda rushed forward. "He's trespassing," she said. "I asked him to leave and he refused. I don't know who he is." Marcus took a breath. "Officer, my name is Marcus Reed. I'm a volunteer coach. These are neighborhood kids." The officer glanced at the children, then back at Marcus. "Do you have identification?" Marcus nodded and reached slowly into his bag, narrating every movement. He handed over his ID, along with laminated papers, parental consent forms, a printed schedule, even a flyer from the community center that partnered with him. The officer flipped through them, expression unreadable. Linda wasn't satisfied. "That doesn't prove anything," she insisted. "Anyone can print papers. He could be lying." One of the kids, a boy no older than 10, spoke up. "That's Coach," he said quietly. "He teaches us." The officer raised a hand. "Stay back, kid." Marcus felt something crack inside him, not anger, but exhaustion, the kind that came from realizing that no matter how much good he did, it could all be undone by a single accusation. Another patrol car arrived, then another. Parents began recording on their phones. Linda's confidence grew with each uniformed figure. "I want him removed," she said. "This is harassment. I don't feel safe." The officers stepped aside to make a call. Marcus stood alone, surrounded but isolated, while the kids watched with wide eyes. He met their gaze and smiled gently, trying to reassure them even as his own chest tightened. Minutes passed. Then one officer's radio crackled. "Yes, Chief," the officer said, straightening slightly. He listened, nodded, then handed the radio to Marcus. "Sir, the chief would like to speak to you." Marcus hesitated, then took it. "This is Marcus Reed." There was a pause, then a voice on the other end, warm and unmistakably familiar. "Coach Reed," the voice said, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "This is Chief Daniels. I heard there was some trouble at your court."
Marcus swallowed. "Yes, sir. You still running those Saturday programs?" the chief asked. "Yes, sir. Same kids, same court." The chief chuckled softly. "I figured. You coached my nephew 3 years ago. Kid still talks about you." Silence fell over the court. Linda's face drained of color. The chief continued, his tone shifting, firm now. "Marcus, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Those officers will clear this up." Marcus handed the radio back. The officers exchanged looks. One cleared his throat. "Ma'am," he said to Linda, "it appears this gentleman is a registered volunteer coach with community backing. There's no violation here." Linda's mouth opened and closed. But I felt threatened." The officer looked at her steadily. "There's no evidence of a threat." Parents stepped closer now. One father spoke. "You called the police on a man coaching kids again?" Someone else added, "This isn't the first time, is it?" Linda looked around, suddenly aware of the cameras, the witnesses, the kids staring at her with confusion and hurt. The officers took her aside, not in cuffs, but with questions, about false reports, about repeated complaints, about misuse of emergency services. Marcus watched quietly, the kids clustering around him. One tugged his sleeve. "Coach, are we still practicing?" "Yeah," he said softly, "we are." Linda didn't return to the court that day, or the next, or the one after that. Weeks later, a notice went up on the community board, an investigation into HOA conduct, a reminder about discriminatory complaints. Linda stepped down as HOA president soon after, citing personal reasons. The court stayed open. The kids kept coming. And every Saturday morning, as the sun rose over cracked concrete and worn hoops, Marcus unlocked the chain, laid out his cones, and reminded those kids, without ever saying it out loud, that dignity doesn't disappear just because someone tries to call it suspicious. Sometimes justice doesn't arrive with sirens. Sometimes it comes quietly, through truth, through community, and through a voice on the other end of the line that knows exactly who you are.